What if everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations was wrong? From stones melted like glass to blades forged with forgotten science. From skyline temples to water systems that still run after 1,000 years. These aren't myths. They're real. And the deeper we dig, the stranger it gets. Because buried beneath time are technologies no one can explain. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll start to wonder, did they know something we don't? In the year 132 CE, during the Han Dynasty, a Chinese polymath named Zhang Heng unveiled a device that stunned the imperial court. A machine said to detect distant earthquakes before they were felt. It was called the Hofeng Didong Yi, the world's first known seismoscope. At first glance, it resembled a large bronze urn, nearly 6 feet in diameter. 8 dragon heads ringed the vessel, each holding a bronze ball. Beneath each dragon sat a toad with its mouth open, ready to catch the falling sphere. When seismic waves from a distant tremor passed through the earth, the mechanism inside, still a mystery, would release a single ball, indicating the direction of the quake. According to historical accounts, it once signaled an earthquake in the west, even though no tremors were felt in the capital. Days later, a messenger arrived, reporting a distant quake had struck in exactly that direction. Modern reconstructions suggest Zhang's device may have used a pendulum or inverted pendulum to detect ground motion. But the exact workings remain debated, and no original survives, only written records and archaeological replicas. Was this merely a marvel of ancient craftsmanship, or a scientific breakthrough centuries ahead of its time? In the silence after the tremor, one truth endures. Over 1,800 years ago, someone found a way to hear the earth speak first. Beneath the crystal waters off the coast of Antikythera, Greece, divers once recovered the shattered remains of a shipwreck over 2,000 years old. Among the bronzes and marble lay something no one expected, a corroded lump of gears and dials. What they had found was the Antikythera mechanism, the world's first known analog computer. Dated to around 150 BCE, this device was built with a complexity unmatched for the next 1,000 years. Made of bronze and encased in wood, its inner workings featured over 30 precision-cut gears, interlocked to predict the movement of celestial bodies. It could track the cycles of the sun and moon, forecast eclipses, and even model the irregular orbit of the moon with remarkable accuracy. Turning a single crank set the system in motion, rotating multiple dials on the front and back, all inscribed with Greek inscriptions. It wasn't just a calculator, it was a mechanical cosmos. And yet, its origin remains unclear. Was it built in Rhodes, a known center of astronomy? Was it the work of Hipparchus, or an unknown genius whose knowledge vanished with time? No other device from the ancient world comes close in complexity. For centuries, the technology to replicate it simply did not exist. The Antikythera mechanism challenges our assumptions of ancient knowledge. Who else understood the stars so deeply, and what else might have been lost beneath the waves of time? Beneath the sands of ancient Egypt, amid tombs and temples, lies evidence not just of kings and gods, but of healers. The papyri and preserved instruments that remain tell a story often overlooked, that of ancient Egyptian surgery. Dating back over 3,500 years, the Edwin Smith Papyrus is the oldest known surgical text. Unlike mystical incantations common to the era, this scroll reads like a medical manual, describing trauma cases, diagnoses, and even procedures for stitching wounds and immobilizing fractures. It speaks of rational medicine, observation, and anatomy, and remarkably of surgical tools. From excavation sites and tombs, archaeologists have uncovered bronze scalpels, forceps, bone saws, and probes, many shaped not unlike modern instruments. Hooks for extracting tissue, clamps for controlling bleeding, and needles for suturing have all been found. These tools, sterilized with wine and kappa's natural antibacterial properties, were often stored in leather pouches or wooden cases, ready for use by temple physicians. But how advanced were their methods? Skull trepanations and wound treatments suggest they understood the basics of antisepsis and pain management, using substances like honey, myrrh, and willow bark. Were these the first surgeons in history, or inheritors of even older traditions now lost? The metal blades may have dulled with time, but their legacy cuts deep, reminding us that even in the shadow of pyramids, human hands once reached out not to harm, but to heal. In the quiet valleys of Spain, Wales, and the Balkans, ancient scars etched into the earth tell a story of extraordinary ingenuity, one that begins not with conquest, but with water. Long before the Industrial Revolution, the Roman Empire harnessed the power of water on a scale few could imagine. Through a technique known as ruina montium, or wrecking of mountains, Roman engineers channeled vast amounts of water to tear entire hillsides apart. At places like Las Medulas in northern Spain, aqueducts stretched for miles, delivering water from distant reservoirs to remote mining sites. These aqueducts fed into storage tanks perched above the mines, waiting silently for release. When the moment came, sluice gates were opened and torrents of water surged down man-made trenches, striking the mountainsides with such force that they crumbled, revealing veins of precious gold hidden within. The debris-laden water was then filtered through wooden sluices, separating metal from mud, treasure from ruin. But how did the Romans manage to design such complex hydrological systems with primitive tools? Their understanding of pressure, flow, and terrain was remarkably advanced, so much so that many of their techniques remain under study by modern engineers. And yet, despite all this mastery, one question lingers like sediment in the channels they carved. How much of this knowledge was truly Roman, and how much was inherited from forgotten civilizations lost to time? High in the jungles of Mesoamerica, beneath layers of stone and centuries of silence, the ancient Maya gazed upward, not just in wonder, but with extraordinary precision. Long before the invention of telescopes, the Maya tracked the movements of the heavens with mathematical accuracy that continues to astound modern scholars. From their towering observatories, like the El Caracol at Chichen Itza, they observed the paths of the sun, moon, Venus, and other celestial bodies, recording cycles, predicting eclipses, and aligning temples to the solstices and equinoxes. Central to their understanding was the long count calendar, a base 20 numerical system capable of tracking vast expanses of time. Their calculations placed Venus's cycle at 584 days, nearly identical to modern values, and their knowledge of lunar phases was refined enough to project eclipses centuries in advance. These weren't mere observations. They were part of a cosmological order, where time itself was sacred, and each celestial event carried meaning. Even their ritual and agricultural calendars, Sokin and Hab, interlocked in a 52-year cycle, reflecting a worldview where astronomy, mythology, and daily life were inseparable. Yet, despite this brilliance, many of their original codices were destroyed during colonial conquests. What survives today is but a fragment, a glimpse into a cosmic understanding we still struggle to decode. And so, we're left staring at the same sky, wondering, what else did the Maya see that we no longer remember? Long before the age of Euclid and Pythagoras, in the dusty plains of ancient Mesopotamia, a clay tablet lay hidden, its cuneiform symbols silent for over 3 millennia. Known today as Plimpton 322, this 3,700-year-old artifact has sparked a quiet revolution in the history of mathematics. Carved by Babylonian scribes around 1800 BCE, the tablet contains a table of numbers that many believe represents an early form of trigonometry, predating Greek discoveries by over 1,000 years. But unlike modern trigonometry, which is based on angles and circles, the Babylonians used ratios derived from right-angled triangles. Their base 60-number system, far more flexible than our decimal one, allowed them to generate incredibly precise calculations. No sine, cosine, or tangent. Instead, they relied on geometric logic and clever algorithms, possibly for use in surveying land, constructing temples, or tracking the stars. What's most astonishing is not just the mathematical insight, but the implication. A sophisticated understanding of geometry, long before the concept of degrees or radians even existed. Yet mystery surrounds the tablet's true purpose. Was it a teacher's tool, a work of pure theory, or part of a larger, lost tradition of Babylonian science? As we decode the symbols line by line, one truth becomes clear. The story of mathematics may have started much earlier than we thought, and its origins might still lie buried in the sands of time. In the rolling landscapes of ancient Greece, where myth met mathematics, a quiet technological revolution was turning beneath the surface, powered not by gods or heroes, but by water. The Greek watermill, first documented in the 3rd century BCE, marks one of the earliest known uses of mechanical energy to perform labor. Invented during the Hellenistic period, it harnessed the kinetic force of flowing water to rotate a horizontal or vertical wheel, which in turn powered grinding stones used for milling grain. For the first time, muscle and manual effort gave way to automation, freeing human hands while accelerating productivity. Historians credit Philo of Byzantium with the earliest reference to a water-powered wheel, though archaeological evidence suggests these mills soon spread across the Greco-Roman world. From Alexandria to the Aegean Islands, the rhythm of millstones grinding echoed a transformation in daily life and industry. But beyond grain, the potential was greater. These early machines laid the foundation for a mechanized future, precursors to industrial systems that wouldn't emerge for another 2,000 years. And yet, much about the Greek water mill remains elusive. Was it a rare invention, tucked away in elite cities? Or was it common, its presence simply lost to time and erosion? The water has long since run dry, but its quiet turning may have sparked a revolution that shaped the world. In the highlands of central Mexico, the ruins of Tula rise from the dust, silent, imposing, and steeped in mystery. Here, the Toltec civilization left behind temples unlike any in Mesoamerica, structures that speak of both spiritual devotion and sophisticated engineering. At the heart of Tula stands the temple of Tlahuizcalpantecutli, dedicated to the god of the morning star. Atop its pyramidal base, for colossal basalt statues, known as the Atlantean figures, once supported a ceremonial roof. Each figure, carved with uncanny precision, stands over 15 feet tall, bearing intricate armor and weaponry. But these weren't merely symbolic guardians. They were load-bearing supports, part of an architectural system that required exact weight distribution and alignment. The Toltecs used basalt and volcanic stone, cut and fitted with techniques that remain poorly understood. Their layout reflects advanced planning, with temples aligned to astronomical events and ceremonial plazas designed for acoustic resonance. The city's central axis may have served both religious and observational functions, linking the divine with the measurable movements of the heavens. What tools did they use? What knowledge did they inherit or originate? Despite their influence on later cultures like the Aztecs, the origins of Toltec engineering remain clouded by time and myth. And so the Atlantean statues stand frozen on the summit, mute reminders of a civilization whose blueprints we may never fully decode. Beneath the arid plains of modern-day Pakistan and northwest India lies one of the earliest planned cities in human history, silent yet astonishing in its precision. This is the Indus Valley civilization, and its crown jewels, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, were not just settlements, but masterclasses in ancient urban planning. Over 4,000 years ago, Harappan engineers laid out their cities on a strict grid system, streets running in perfect north-south and east-west alignments. Main avenues were wide and straight, intersected by narrower lanes, forming rectangular blocks that mirror the geometry of modern cities. At a time when many cultures still built in organic sprawl, the Harappans designed with intention, order, and foresight. Beneath the surface ran an intricate drainage network, covered sewers, soak pits, and brick-lined channels that carried wastewater away from homes and public buildings. Residential structures were uniformly made of kiln-fired bricks, many with private wells and bathrooms, suggesting a level of civic equality and concern for hygiene rare in the ancient world. There are no grand temples, no extravagant palaces, just a quiet, intelligent infrastructure that served a thriving urban population. Yet, the enigma remains. How did such engineering flourish without monumental rulers, written proclamations, or military empires? What system of governance enabled this collective order? The streets of Harappa may be long abandoned, but their careful angles still whisper of a civilization that valued design, discipline, and a harmony we've only begun to understand. In the shadowed hills of ancient Europe and parts of sub-Saharan Africa, blackened stone ruins and slag heaps whisper of a technological leap that reshaped civilization, the mastery of iron through fire. The Iron Age brought more than weapons and tools. It introduced the furnace, an intense, blazing chamber where Earth's raw ore was transformed into something stronger, more enduring. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of these early blast furnaces across the world. In the forests of Germany, the highlands of Nigeria, the valleys of India, each tells a story of innovation born from heat and necessity. Unlike simple hearths, these furnaces were complex constructions, stone or clay shafts, sometimes over a meter tall, carefully packed with alternating layers of charcoal and iron ore. Bellows, often powered by human or wind energy, pumped air into the base, raising internal temperatures beyond 1,200 degrees Celsius, hot enough to smelt iron, yet below its melting point. What remained was a sponge-like mass called bloom, later hammered into usable metal. In places like Taruga, Nigeria, these techniques emerged independently, suggesting a parallel development of metallurgical knowledge across distant cultures. The scale and organization required to sustain these operations hint at specialized labor, early supply chains, and the birth of true industry. Yet, many questions remain buried beneath the slag. Who first discovered the balance of air, ore, and flame? Were these technologies shared, or lost civilizations rediscovered them anew? The embers have long since cooled, but the bones of those furnaces still hold the heat of human ingenuity. Beneath the timeless gaze of the pyramids and temples, one question continues to puzzle historians and engineers alike. How did the ancient Egyptians carve and construct such monumental works, using tools made only of copper? Copper, a soft metal by modern standards, was widely available along the Nile and used extensively during Egypt's Old and Middle Kingdoms. And yet, with it, the Egyptians sculpted granite statues, quarried limestone blocks, and etched precise hieroglyphs into obelisks weighing hundreds of tons. Sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza or the unfinished obelisk at Aswan stand as silent testaments to a method we still don't fully grasp. Archaeological finds reveal chisels, saws, and drills, many composed entirely of copper or arsenical bronze. But copper alone would dull quickly against the hardness of granite. So how were such feats achieved? Some theories suggest the use of quartz sand as an abrasive. Others propose techniques of pounding, polishing, or even copper tools tipped with harder minerals now lost to time. Despite decades of excavation, no definitive evidence has resolved the enigma. The tools discovered don't match the scale or durability seemingly required for the precision on display. Were we simply missing pieces of their toolkit, or was their approach to engineering unlike anything we've considered? The stones remain, carved, aligned, and enduring, but the full story of how soft metal shaped a civilization of stone still lies buried in the sands of ancient Egypt. Rising from the quiet plains of Gyeongju, South Korea, stands a stone structure that has defied centuries of wind and war. Gyeongseongdi, its name meaning stargazing tower, is believed to be the oldest surviving astronomical observatory in East Asia. Constructed during the 7th century under Queen Seondeok of the Silla Kingdom, Gyeongseongdi is more than just an architectural relic. Standing 9 meters tall, it's built from precisely 362 granite blocks, one for each day in the lunar year, arranged in a gently tapering cylinder. A square window opens to the south, aligned with celestial movement, while an internal ladder once led upward to the tower's center. Its design reveals a mind attuned not only to the skies, but to symbolic order. 12 base stones for the months, 27 levels for the queen's place in the royal lineage, and perfect alignment with the sun's path. But what was its true function? Some scholars believe it tracked solstices and equinoxes. Others see it as ceremonial, less an observatory, more a monument to celestial harmony. What's clear is this: long before telescopes and star charts, the Scylla watched the heavens from a tower of stone, blending science, spirituality, and statecraft in a single, enduring form. And as night falls over Gyeongju, Gyeongseongdi still stands, its purpose partially veiled, its stones still listening to the stars. Deep within the ruins of the Indus Valley civilization, a silent marvel of engineering sits carved into the earth, stone-lined tanks, reservoirs, and drains that hint at something far more advanced than simple water storage. These were not just pools. They may have been among the world's earliest water purification systems. At sites like Mohenjo-Daro and Dhalavira, archaeologists have uncovered stepwells, bathing tanks, and interconnected drains built with striking uniformity. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, meticulously sealed with bitumen and fed by a dedicated well, may have served not just a ceremonial function, but a hygienic one. Nearby, soak pits filled with sand and charcoal suggest early forms of filtration. Some scholars believe these systems filtered impurities before water entered communal areas. The layout was intentional. Wastewater flowed away through gradient-controlled brick-lined sewers, while fresh water was drawn from strategically placed wells. In Dhalavira, a complex rainwater harvesting system collected, stored, and possibly filtered monsoon runoff, showcasing an acute understanding of water conservation in a semi-arid land. But how much did the Harappans truly understand about water quality? Were these systems designed through empirical knowledge, or the legacy of even earlier innovation? The answers remain murky, like the ancient channels they left behind. Yet the stone tanks and sunken baths still echo a truth. This was a civilization that knew water was life and treated it with remarkable care. Long before steel needles pointed north, and centuries before magnetic compasses guided explorers across seas, ancient Chinese sages looked to something far older: turtle shells. Dating as far back as the Shang dynasty, nearly 3,000 years ago, oracle bones, typically turtle plastrons or ox scapulae, were used for divination. Cracks from heated inscriptions revealed guidance from the spirit world. But within these artifacts lies another mystery. Were some of them early compasses? Records from the Warring States period describe a device known as the south-pointing spoon, a polished lodestone carved into the shape of a spoon, balanced on a smooth bronze plate. The lodestone, a naturally magnetized mineral, would align itself along the Earth's magnetic field, its handle always pointing south. Some believe this concept may have roots in older divinatory tools, perhaps even in the turtle shells used for spiritual insight. What's remarkable is that by the 4th century BCE, Chinese scholars were already aware of magnetism and its directional potential centuries before it emerged in the West. Some researchers suggest that the engraved patterns and deliberate positioning on certain turtle shells weren't just ritualistic, but encoded knowledge of geomagnetic orientation. Were these early instruments of navigation hidden beneath a spiritual veil? Or did ancient science and religion move hand in hand, indistinguishable to their creators? The shells are silent now, cracked by time, but they may once have turned not only toward fate, but toward true north. In a dusty Egyptian tomb near the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, archaeologists unearthed a small, wooden object, wings outstretched, carved with symmetry, and dated to around 200 BCE. To some, it was just a stylized falcon. To others, it was something far more provocative, a model of ancient flight. Now known as the Saqqara Bird, this 15-centimeter artifact is carved from sycamore wood, with a slender fuselage, slightly curved wings, and a vertical tail. What's striking is its aerodynamic form, resembling, at least superficially, a modern glider. It lacks eyes, feathers, or decorative features common in ritual carvings. Instead, it seems engineered for air. Could it have been a toy, a weather vane, or a scaled prototype of something larger? Some experimentalists have built replicas and demonstrated that it can glide under controlled conditions. Others point out the lack of a horizontal stabilizer, making true flight unlikely. No texts accompany the object. No other similar artifacts have been found. and yet it lingers in the imagination, a solitary form that seems to stretch beyond its time. Was the Saqqara Bird a coincidence of form, a forgotten experiment, or the whisper of ancient aeronautical curiosity? It remains suspended, not in air, but in mystery, its wings frozen between myth and science, asking a question that history has yet to answer. Forged in the heart of the ancient Middle East, Damascus steel was more than just metal, it was legend. Famed for its flowing, water-like patterns and near-mythical sharpness, it cut through both armor and history with effortless grace. By the 3rd century CE, swordsmiths in Syria were crafting blades that rivaled anything the world had seen. These weapons weren't merely strong, they were flexible, resilient, and capable of holding an edge sharp enough to split a strand of silk in midair. But what truly set Damascus steel apart was its mysterious internal structure. Bands of carbon woven through iron like fingerprints of fire. The secret lay in the steel's source, woods, a high-carbon metal imported from ancient India. Through a precise process of forging and cooling, smiths manipulated the carbon nanostructures within the alloy, unknowingly creating microscopic tubes and crystals that modern scientists only recently began to understand. And then, the knowledge vanished. By the 18th century, true Damascus steel disappeared. The techniques, closely guarded, passed from master to apprentice, were lost amid trade disruptions, war, and the industrial rise of standardized steel. Today, metallurgists can mimic its appearance, even its performance. But the original method, the soul of the blade, remains an unsolved puzzle. What forgotten fire, what exact rhythm of heat and time gave birth to these blades? Damascus steel endures not just in museums and myths, but as a riddle still etched in steel. In the hills of eastern Lebanon, beneath the ruins of a Roman temple complex, lie 3 stones that have defied time, logic, and gravity. They are the trilithon of Baalbek, and their sheer scale continues to baffle archaeologists to this day. Each of these megaliths weighs an estimated 800 tons. Carved from solid limestone, they form part of the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter, once among the largest religious structures in the Roman Empire. What's remarkable is not just their size, but their precision. The stones are perfectly cut, fitted with minimal gaps, and aligned along a platform that has stood for over 2,000 years. But how were they moved? No records explain their transport from the nearby quarry, where even larger stones, like the 1,000-ton stone of the pregnant woman, still lie partially buried. No cranes existed at the time capable of lifting such weight. Some theorize that a combination of rollers, sledges, and manpower was used. Others believe that the Romans built atop an even older structure, raising questions about which civilization first placed the trilithon. There are no inscriptions, no guides, just silent stones, resting with improbable balance. Whether a feat of Roman engineering or a legacy of a forgotten culture, the trilithon remains a mystery etched in stone, its secrets hidden beneath layers of earth, time, and awe. On a windswept hilltop in southeastern Turkey, buried beneath millennia of soil, an ancient puzzle has emerged, carved in stone and aligned with the sky. This is Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known temple complex, and its celestial alignments have stirred both wonder and debate. Dating back over 11,000 years, well before the advent of agriculture, Göbekli Tepe's massive T-shaped pillars rise in deliberate circles. Carved with animals, abstract symbols, and humanoid forms, these megaliths are not haphazard. They suggest planning, geometry, and perhaps something more. Researchers have noted that some enclosures align with astronomical events. Pillar 43, the so-called vulture stone, may reference a significant celestial occurrence, possibly the star Sirius rising on the horizon, or even the Taurid meteor stream. Others propose solstitial or equinoctial alignments, hinting that these circles functioned not just as sanctuaries, but as observatories, sacred calendars etched in limestone. But interpretations remain contested. Without written records, meaning is elusive. Were these alignments intentional, or coincidence shaped by erosion and time? Were they tracking the heavens, or invoking them. What's clear is that the builders of Göbekli Tepe possessed not only symbolic vision, but architectural and possibly astronomical knowledge far ahead of their era. The stones still stand, heavy with silence, casting long shadows at dawn, perhaps exactly as they were meant to. Scattered across the rugged highlands and coastal cliffs of Scotland lie ruins that seem forged not just by human hands, but by fire. These are the Vitrified Forts, ancient strongholds whose stone walls have been partially melted into glass. Over 60 such sites have been identified, including the famed Dunadir, Taponath, and Craig Fadrig. Their defining feature? Massive walls of stone, fused together by heat so intense it caused the rocks to soften, melt, and bind, a process known as vitrification. But how and why? Vitrifying stone requires temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, far hotter than a typical wood fire. To achieve this at such scale would demand enormous quantities of fuel and a carefully controlled burn. Yet these forts were built during the Iron Age, long before modern kilns or furnaces. Some scholars believe this was an intentional act to strengthen the walls. Others suggest a ritual burning, perhaps during conquest, or as a symbolic end to a clan's dominance. No tools, no definitive layers of occupation, and no written records have been found to clearly explain the purpose or method. Were the vitrified walls a product of desperate warfare, an engineering experiment, or an ancient technology now forgotten? The ruins remain, molten stone frozen in time, offering a mystery as enduring and untamed as the Scottish Highlands themselves. Perched high in the Andes, shrouded in mist and myth, Machu Picchu stands not just as a marvel of Incan architecture, but as a silent tribute to ancient hydraulic mastery. Built in the 15th century, this royal citadel was carved into the mountainside with uncanny precision. Yet beyond the terraces and temples lies a subtler wonder, an advanced water system that continues to function over 500 years later. A natural spring located above the city was carefully tapped by Incan engineers. They constructed a primary canal that channeled fresh water downward through a gravity-fed system. This main artery fed into fountains, ritual basins, and even residential compounds, delivering clean water with consistent pressure. At least 16 ceremonial fountains, the complex, cascading in a sequence that mirrored Incan spiritual beliefs. Drainage was equally meticulous. Stone-lined channels and underground conduits whisked away excess water, preventing erosion in the rainy Andean climate. The very slopes of Machu Picchu were sculpted not just for beauty or defense, but for hydrological harmony. But how did they calculate such balance without modern instruments? How did they predict flow, pressure, and runoff on such an unforgiving terrain? We may never fully uncover the calculations etched into stone, but the waters still run, clear, measured, and enduring. A silent current flowing through time, engineered by a people who knew how to listen to the mountain.